Signomi, then Milo, Hellenica. So I'll have to continue in English. Good afternoon, all of you. I'm going to try to stay focused on you, wonderful audience. Thank you for being here. But I have to admit, it's very hard to stay focused just on you. This is probably one of the nicest venues I've ever had the privilege of speaking to. You're very fortunate, I think, to have this type of facility in your country even, let alone your capital. But congratulations, and I guess thank you to Mr. Niarchos. My mission here today is to, of course, first of all, welcome you to this event. Many of you have been customers, partners, fans, and supporters of what we do and what we've been doing for the last 44 years. Let me start by thanking all of you for this long journey. And obviously, we would wish nothing more than to continue for the next 44 years. And today is obviously one more step in giving you a reason why Microsoft deserves your time, your interest, or your investment. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for being here with us. Let me also thank all of our sponsors, without whom this event would not have been possible. As I travel across the region, which I have the privilege of covering for Microsoft, 33 countries, very different makeup of social, economical, and cultural backgrounds. Ultimately, the question I get asked the most is, how do you see the future and what is technology going to be able to bring in terms of benefits? And I think the coming together of the technology opportunity with the business impact is really what's at the core of what hopefully we can briefly talk about today. Let me start by saying that in the portfolio of countries that we cover around the world, Greece is truly exceptional in the good way. Exceptional because the technological choices that many of you in this room and many more outside of this room have been making over the last 10 years compared to where the rest of the world is truly groundbreaking. The uptake of cloud computing in Greece is literally world-class. I don't believe there are 10 other countries who have this type of forward-looking architectural choices in their DNA. And honestly, I'm very, very impressed every time I meet with customers, local software companies, and some of our distribution partners on how far advanced this country already is. But of course, we don't want to stop here. Of course, the best is yet to come. The best is still in front of us. But I wanted to give you a sense of perspective on the types of progressive use of technology that I come across. And please do remember that you're already quite far ahead. The most recent advances in technology have obviously reinforced and given more arguments and more reasons for many more of our customers and partners to basically make this step to the cloud. And those relate to what is commonly known as artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence, you know, we could spend 2 days debating terminology and definition, but essentially it's a set of technologies which would include some machine learning, would include cognitive services, and would basically allow all of us to look into new opportunities that are out there. If you think about the power of that technology, essentially we are now in a position, increasingly so, to have reasonably accurate to very accurate, and that is actually the step that we're making, translation of what we would refer to as the analog world into digital signals. And we all know, and we've talked about this, many, many times, that there's this beautiful quote which says, "Data is the new oil," and obviously a lot of the potential and the opportunity that happens and that is being captured and monetized in organizations today is around data. So essentially, that's where this whole journey starts. But the ability to basically transpose the analog, the real world, into digital signals, do it remotely, do it securely, do it in a managed way, do it in a cost-affordable way, with intelligence at the edges, is really what is the step change and what is making that possible. And the cloud architecture then allows essentially for that translation to happen, but it also allows for the management, for the data that's being captured to be managed and leveraged. And so there's a number of components, obviously, in that suite of solutions, which today all enable new scenarios, depending on what industry, what role, what function, or what other part of society you can be part of. You'll have a chance a little bit later on to see how Microsoft has leveraged its vision technology into a product, a solution we call Seeing AI. I'm very happy that Sean is here with us today, and he'll be talking about a solution which we developed, which literally helps translate the real world for the seeing impaired by basically listening to their smartphone translate the world in front of them. Obviously, massive societal impact, but above all, a fantastic showcase of what is possible if put in the right hands, and connecting the right people with the right technology really can lead to fantastic results. So essentially, this AI opportunity is there for the taking. And so as I thought to myself, Philippe, we could talk for 3 days about artificial intelligence. Where would we want to take this? Ultimately, I think I want to start here. I want to start with what is the vision that we have as a company. You saw our mission statement up there a little bit earlier, empowering every organization and every person on the planet to achieve more. There's a couple of elements in that mission statement for the company which I just want to quickly double-click on. Empowering means we empower someone else for their success. Our business model is not to get into your business, very clearly. Every organization and person on the planet, last time I checked, includes Greece. We pride ourselves on our global presence and our ability to help entrepreneurs, customers, or individuals basically also capture the global opportunities that this cloud infrastructure and this AI technology now enables them. If you transpose some of that to our artificial intelligence vision, essentially there's a number of communities in this room even whom we're trying to bring a value proposition to. The first one is developers. We want to make sure we go back to what used to be our DNA and our reason of being, which was to basically give the best tools to developers. I wouldn't say that over the last 10 years we were focused on developers first, but I can probably tell you that over the next 10 years and beyond, our focus on the developer community will be second to none. Some of the moves that we've made in the market, some of the product ethos, some of the directional product roadmaps, some of the acquisitions that we've made really point to making sure that developers, who used to be a very small group, but today, to be honest, we believe that every organization is becoming a software company. So how do we talk to all the technical teams in organizations to give them the tools to really leverage the technology that's out there? The second pivot is around industry, transforming them, and in a very humble way, trying to bring value. And so we have very dramatically changed our own internal organizational go-to-market. We have invested in additional resources, and we're trying to also map technologies and use cases to specific industries. Of course, we have the benefit of learning from around the world, but it's very clear that the relevance to you as an organization out there includes the industry you're operating in, and we want to make sure we come closer to that. Building solutions which are relevant also allow them to be resold, and so creating platforms with specific companies in specific industries to then resell to third parties is obviously a third key lever. And the third one is obviously the transformational opportunity for society. It's obvious that with the advent of technology comes a lot of responsibility, and we take this very seriously. We always know we can do better, and there is always a question we haven't answered yet. But we take these choices and these decisions very, very seriously, and we organize ourselves in functions so that we can help tackle some of the most important questions that are out there. And if we do that in line with ethical standards, then we really have together an opportunity to transform. Now, for those of you in the room who aren't fully bought in yet, I can share with you, obviously, the numbers of the potential. And to be honest, every time a slide has the word trillion in it, I get a bit lost, because I wouldn't even know where to begin counting. But I think the key to look at here is effectively the growth that you're seeing in the impact that this type of specific technology is starting to have around the world. These are Gartner predictions, but you see the growth here, and when you see some of the examples, and I'll give you a few later on, it's pretty clear that their impact is pretty phenomenal. And companies around the world, organizations around the world, are starting to really leverage that type of technology today. And so ultimately, at the end of my 15 minutes here, I'll ask you, where are you going to start? Essentially, how does this value creation work? It works essentially by creating signals, getting the information back, processing them and making different decisions, and then sending other signals back out. We call this the digital feedback loop. It's clear that this technology today allows high-growth companies to just be more likely, if they use AI, to accelerate their growth. The numbers prove this. But I feel like I'm proving the obvious. If you look at some of the sort of leadership surveys that are coming out there, this is a top-of-mind agenda item for business leaders in the most successful companies. Now, I often say this, and I'm not sure this is the company-approved definition. I'm sure it's not. But I actually think of this AI technology a little bit like what the advent of spreadsheets must have been 35 years ago. People looked at it, they saw some demos, and they tried to figure out whether this was affordable, how they needed to train their people, who would have access to it, what the computing needs were going to be, and they probably didn't really have a good idea of where to start. They probably thought, you know what, maybe I'll talk to my finance teams first and see what scenarios can be unlocked using spreadsheets to accelerate the number crunching that's required to do business cases, or even to close my books at the end of the year. And look at how far we've come. So the real question, I think, is not so much where do we start as much as are we making the right moves to put this technology in a very democratic way in the hands of people we might not exactly even know what to do with, but they would. And if they do, they're going to uncover the potential. And that really, I think, to me, speaks to the key opportunity here, which goes to the democratization, to the access of this type of technology. We're not talking billions of dollars here. We're talking small-scale experiments, which, if they're proven successful, can lead to an implementation. All for 100 euros, 50 euros, or 500 euros, but basically all credit cardable type of consumption of resources. And so this, for me, is the biggest misconception. Is I think a lot of people believe that this technology requires massive investments, whereas the contrary is very, very true. So if you read about Accenture on AI, it's obvious that they also report tons of opportunities based on the surveys that they've done in Greece. In fact, we came out with a report, which I hope you've seen. If not, you should go over to the Accenture booth to basically hear from your peers, or yourselves in case they called you, what the sentiment is in the market right now, which again, for me, is a quite forward-looking statement already, a quite forward-looking market already in terms of the opportunities which AI present. With 18% of corporate R&D today in Greece already being spent on ICT, I can tell you that's a multiple of a number of neighboring countries. And I believe that that number is probably a prelude to a fundamental transformation of your economy. When I compare that spend on ICT in terms of the share of the GDP that gets spent by companies on technology, you are a multiple of many of the leading countries in Central Eastern Europe. And honestly, I think that's the best leading indicator that I've found so far of the transformation that's going on and the future that's ahead. Now, as I said before, there's a couple of principles I think we feel we need to align on. And in some cases, there's no rule books. Many of us are following what happens in the technology world at large. And obviously, some people are trying to self-regulate, and others are probably going to become regulated in the future. And when you think about the power and the opportunity that this technology presents, I'm sure you'll all agree that doing what's right in the first place is the best way of capturing the opportunity rather than not doing what's right and then running into a wall and being faced with probably, in that scenario, very relevant regulation. A couple of years ago, we published a study on what we believed were some of the sort of basic principles we would want to abide by. It was called The Future Computed. And it talks about these principles. It talks about what we would want systems or algorithms based on the use of this technology to abide by. These are seemingly very conceptual principles, but ultimately they form the basis of an assessment of whether we believe these principles are actually being respected, and if they're not, in a number of cases, we will actually step out or not sell that type of technology for specific cases like this. So we're trying to take a prudent approach. We're being very open about what we're doing in the hope of attracting other industry players to some form of self-regulation and trying to make sure that obviously in the world of AI, the good examples create the market instead of potential abuses of this type of technology. And so we have a committee within Microsoft which basically reviews cases which could be considered borderline in specific industries, specific use cases, specific use of information that has to do with the general public, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes we do reject some of these cases. So again, more work to be done there, and hopefully an invitation to all of our industry friends to try to self-regulate to make sure that this goes well. Let me talk very concretely here, and I think this is where you realize that, talking about AI really, I probably should have skipped all the slides before. Because, when you talk about a spreadsheet, you want to show a spreadsheet. And, the beauty of this is that it's just almost impossible to see and to give you an overview of the type of wonderful projects that are being developed all around the world, across every industry, across every function within these companies, in the commercial space, in the public sector space, in NGOs. And so I just have a couple here, which I wanted to share with you, to tell you in a way how impactful they could be and how disruptive they could be, how transformational for a customer, but also how accessible they are. And so you'll see some that are reasonably varied. You can rest assured that there's many in between. I had a chance to meet with Mike, who's the CEO of Metis, earlier today. And obviously, this country has a very deep shipping tradition. I happen to have worked in shipping myself, not in Greece, but for 5 years, so I have some particular fondness for the industry. And it's fair to say that this is an industry which, until probably 10 years ago, it was certainly the last industry to still use telex. The younger people in the room probably don't even remember what the telex is. In fact, they actually skipped the fax because they were using telex when all of us were using the fax. And then they basically went to email. Also, many of these vessels really did not have decent connectivity. So they were out there. And so the guys back, managing the ships from the shore were basically approximating and making assessments and averages and what have you. And using technologies to be able to effectively connect the activities and all of the events surrounding the operation of a fleet of ships, from emissions to the fouling of the hull, which is how quickly it basically picks up dirt and therefore consumes more, to routes, to safety events, you name it, to position, to weather. Metis has basically digitized all of that. And the beautiful thing is, of course, not only have they digitized it, but it's connected now. So they're now offering a platform to ship owners and operators to say, wow, I can now literally see what's happening. I can start saving money, working on safety, et cetera, et cetera. Made in Greece, ladies and gentlemen, made in Greece. Yeah, absolutely. Now, it is my belief that these types of solutions, obviously, of course, Metis has already covered a large part of the local fleet, but this is a world market and a world business. And so one of the things which we committed to is to work closely with Metis and see how we could, through our own Microsoft teams around the world, actually connect them in other shipping hubs to see how we could bring this Greek technology to market in other markets. So again, I think there's many examples. Let me also invite you, if you haven't had a chance, to go on the first floor. When you walk in, just go up one level. We have, I think, 14 or 15 of some of the most advanced solution providers there, AI innovators with really groundbreaking solutions. Many of them are startups, not all of them. Many of them are startups. And I think many of them would contain components that you might not have thought of. So really worth having a look at that. There's a couple of other examples quickly which I would love to share with you. I probably won't have a lot of time. There is one where we basically have automated a poultry farm in Lithuania, where we actually look at the eggs that come out, and looking and scanning the eggs, we can figure out whether, well, they can figure out whether the food for the chicken is at the right quality and the right time. Waber is a Hungarian transportation company. If you drive on the motorway, you'll see Waber on the side of trucks. They've been using our machine learning technologies to optimize the loading of their trucks, so they managed to actually get their average load rate of a truck up to in the mid-90%, which is a big step up from where they were before, using predictions on, hey, where is shipment going to come from on a Monday, on a Thursday afternoon in this city. The MOL Group, oil and gas company, very well known in that region, is actually using our technology to optimize, amongst others, to optimize the quantity of sulfur in the diesel. This is regulated, and obviously they get oil from 5,000 wells around, not the world, but around all of the oil wells that they have. Some are in the sea, they have a little bit more salt. Some are from land, they have a little bit less salt. And so they can actually predict now how to optimize, to maximize the sulfur in the diesel using historical data and using machine learning. The one other one that I wanted to share with you is this young lady. And for me, this speaks to the accessibility of the technology. Maria is 16 years old, and she's not a coder. And we organized a coding event for girls, and she came. because she was curious. And she was with us for a few days. And then when she came back home, and we didn't know this, she started working with her local pediatrician, her doctor, who had a Facebook page, and she literally developed a chatbot using Azure technologies, which if you go to the doctor's Facebook page, actually answers 70% of the questions which the doctor would normally have to take himself instead of being productive with patients. This young lady saw an opportunity, was not trained as a professional developer, but used easy-to-access tools, found a very relevant scenario, and can build this type of scenario. And so, honestly, if she can do it, so can we. And I found this example extremely inspiring. And so, as I said in the beginning, my question to you is, I think Greece has figured out the path of using technology to transform its economy and its society. The evidence points to a very significant investment in R&D of your companies, 18%. Wow. So that's going to come. I have to believe, looking at some of the companies that we have showcased here up there, that the most advanced technologies are going to come from Greece, and we will help you bring them to the world. So let's be clear. This is now a global game. The cards in this cloud economy are being reshuffled. It's no longer whether you have a port or what time zone you're in or how many people work, how many inhabitants you have that drives your GDP. This now becomes a crucial part of your economical growth. But to be clear, the AI race is on. On different continents, things are happening at different speeds. I want to say a big congratulations for what Greece has done so far, and even more encouragement to continue and capture this opportunity to leapfrog other countries in the global rankings. With that, thank you again for being here. Thank you for your commitment, time commitment. Ευχαριστώ.